Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Olson with the NTCA. I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know how busy everybody is. Today's webinar is titled Maximizing Tile Installation with Trim Profiles and is sponsored and presented by Schluter Systems. Before I introduce today's speaker, I need to remind you that during the webinar, you'll be muted. Please use the questions area on your computer to type in your question. We will answer your questions at the end of this presentation. If the audio on your computer is poor, call the number on the invite to this webinar and you will be able to listen on your phone. All of our webinars are available to watch at any time on the NTCA YouTube channel. Shortly after this webinar, we will put them on. It'll take about 72 hours to get this onto our YouTube channel. Please go there. You can listen to our webinars at any time. Watch them, share them with your friends, and it's really simple and easy to do. All right. Today's speaker where he develops the educational programs, is the lead presenter. This is developing workshops and classes that provide the tiling community with access to industry-approved tiling methods and an overview of how Schluter products can increase the durability of these installations. Before joining the company in 1997, Andrew was Andrew was a tile installer for 20 years, with over half his experience as a California State C54 licensed tile contractor. Andrew also serves on the board of directors of the Ceramic Tile Education Foundation, CTEF. I really want to thank you for being here, Andy. I want to thank all of you for attending, and I look forward to a great program, Andy. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody. So happy to have you here. This is always a very popular topic. It's kind of where we came from. It's where we started at our company, Schluter Systems. We're going to jump in and go through quite a few profiles in this particular thing here. I'm glad I don't have the same shirt on as I have in my picture. That'd be kind of embarrassing, wouldn't it? I own more than one shirt, but that's a nice one I have on, but I've got a different one on here. So there are some learning objectives here as far as you folks that are dialing in or tuning in. We're going to look at a lot of different profiles, their basic design and function, the different applications, whether it's a floor, a wall, a countertop, stair nosing, even some for LVT and LVP type of products. So we're going to be going through a lot of this. It's funny, I don't have a slide with the logo, but this is a non-proprietary workshop. So it is actually good for CEU. So keep that in mind for you folks that are in the A&D community. This does qualify. This is a CEU by the AIA. And the design community too. Okay, so first thing we want to do though is talk about why do we need these profiles? What's the genesis of them? What's really the motivation to have them? And then we're going to go through the various type of profiles. So why do we use the different trim profiles? Well, you can see here it's going to prevent breakage and chipping and cracking and damage to the tile. It could prevent tripping hazards and so forth. It could be, again, protecting the tile. It could be something to increase the aesthetics of the application. It could be a design element. It could be where tile doesn't come with any trim. It could actually be introducing more of a maintenance-free type of application. We're going to be looking at those. And then, of course, just easy maintenance altogether. So there's lots of reasons why we use trim tile. But the way it really started was way back when we used to do big, thick mortar beds. All the tile installations were bonded to a mortar bed, whether it was a wall or a floor, wherever it was, the tile was first there was a mortar bed, then you bonded the tile directly to it. Well, that gave you a pretty thick assembly altogether, so that the way you treated the transition, if there wasn't tile throughout the entire building and you had to transition to an adjacent covering, you actually used a large marble threshold. So this gave you the transition from one height to the other, and it also protected the edge of the tile. Well, what happened clear back in the 1960s and as progressed from there, where it is the standard method, is a direct bond method. So we don't have that big, thick mortar bed to have to accommodate with the transition, but it did leave the tile exposed because we didn't have anything in the tile industry or in the flooring industry really that would protect the edge of the tile. And that's really where the whole thing started, with starting to make profiles to do that edge protection and transition. So the benefits of those are to protect the edges of the tile, give a nice, clean, professional finish to the edge, do a transition to an adjacent covering, whether it's at the same level or lower or higher. There's different profiles out there for that. And then also just increase the design possibilities. So we're going to look at all of that as we move forward. Also, accommodate movement. We need to have movement joints within our tile veneer assemblies. We could reduce the amount of maintenance that needs to be there, or maybe the tile doesn't come with any trim, which we're really finding more and more prevalent now, that the domestic manufacturers aren't making all the trim that they used to back in the day. Most of the stuff that's imported from overseas, and a lot of even stuff made here, doesn't come with any trim. So you're still going to need that. That's going to, again, open up the design possibilities as far as what tile you can choose from and what you can't when we have to rely on the trim from the tile manufacturer. So we're going to take a look at those. But when we get down to the profile itself, there are some key elements here or designs into the profile that make them function the way that they're supposed to. We are there to protect the edge of the tile, so there is going to be an upright design. Then there's an anchoring leg, or a small portion of the profile that fits underneath the tile and is installed with the tile into the thin set mortar, into the bond coat. And you can see how that works its way down into the bond coat, holds it firmly in place, but doesn't interfere with the 90 to maybe 95, 100% coverage that you need to have between the tile and the substrate below via the bond coat, the thin set. So that's what we're looking at here, is that edge protection, and to finish off that edge, make it look real professional. Of course, these profiles come in various heights to match the thickness of your tile. So you do want to select that, and we'll give you a little tip on selection. If the tile is a format that doesn't have one edge that's 15 inches or longer, which is called a large format tile, then you pick the profile that is the same height as your tile thickness. But as soon as you go to those large format tiles, where we're now adding a substantial amount of thin set or bond coat that will build up the overall thickness or elevation, you should go up a size as far as your profile there. Keep that in mind. That's for all of the perimeter profiles that you have out there. If you have one that's within the field of tile, though, like the movement joints you're seeing on your screen here, then what we want to do is we want to pick one that's flush, or maybe just a little bit lower than the tile face itself, never above the top. So it'll look more like the grout line, that is just a little bit recessed from the tile surface. So keep that in mind. Now, what kind of material should you be using in your profile? It's completely contingent on the type of environment that you're placing these things in. And so you can see from the screen here, depending on the environment, if you have a heavy commercial environment, we do make stainless steel and brass. Those are both very durable. And of course, the stainless steel can handle and withstand a lot of cleaning chemicals and caustic materials, that type of thing. If you're going to light commercial, of course, you could use stainless steel and brass there, but now you can start introducing some aluminum and even some PVC on the walls and countertops. Residential, of course, you could use everything that they're available in. So let's take a look at some of the profiles for floors. We're just going to highlight some of the most popular ones that are out there. There's all kinds of profiles designed to do whatever it is you're trying to achieve there, whether you're doing a transition, even or uneven, too hard surfaces, soft surfaces. There's many out there on the market. So we're just going to highlight a few. You can see that from the ones here on the screen, a couple of them have an R in the corner. That means that they can actually be bent into a radius. So keep that in mind, that many of these profiles can be radius, some others can't. So let's take a look at the ones that we have here on the screen. This is the first profile that was really on the market in the tile industry. simple L angle. You can see it here between tile and carpet in the big picture and in the inset. And then if you look at the stylized drawings down in the corner, you can see that it might change its appearance a little bit as far as the way it's made based on what material it's made out of. But when it's installed, it all ends up looking about the same. Very small reveal as far as the amount you can see. It's great for ideal here, are great as you see between carpet and tile. It's going to give the edge protection. And if you don't have a full tile at this edge where you're going to have a cut, it will give you a nice, clean, professional appearance when you transition from one flooring to the other. This one is available and can be radiused. You can see here the little radius picture showing that it's been cut up by the manufacturer, or it can be done on the field if it's only a piece or two, to actually bend it into fairly tight radiuses actually. So keep that in mind that you can do that. This one is very similar to the one we just looked at, although it has more of an appearance across the top. Twice the thickness is visible. Instead of 1/8 of an inch, it's roughly 1/4 of an inch that you can actually see. So now you can actually incorporate that into a little bit of a design element. You see here in the large photograph, they've put it where they've transitioned in the color of the tile to actually feature that a little bit. So that's a nice little thing you could do. And this particular profile actually can be used as a retrofit where the anchoring lead doesn't necessarily go under the tile, but can actually go under the adjacent covering if you have another one and you've missed putting it in, or the opportunity to put it in when the anchoring leg goes under the tile. It can be done as a retrofit. How about different height transitions? This is going to occur a lot when you get a tile assembly that's thicker than the adjacent floor covering, as you see here in the pictures. You can see also that many of these meet ADA as far as the slope ratio and the transition from one covering to the other. The reason the one in the bottom corner does not meet it is because that is actually an adjustable transition. So we can't say yes or no whether it does, because it's up to the installer and whoever specifies the materials on both sides on whether it is ADA. In many cases it is, but we can't make that blanket statement. So let's take a look at some of these. This one's very popular. You can see here where we've got tile to carpet, which is done quite often. You can see it in both the photographs how it goes in. And if you look at the stylized drawing, you can see it actually has a little bit of a void underneath the ramp where you can tuck the edge of the carpet to keep that vulnerable edge of the carpet from being caught and maybe unwinding or unfurling or being damaged in some fashion. So this is very, very popular. And I tell you, the carpet people love to see that this is already installed by the tile installer, because it makes their job to actually install the carpet up against the tile very simple process to go in. They just cut it and tuck it in, and it's done, and it looks very attractive. This one here also does have the ability to be radiused. So if you did want to do something with some sort of radius, this one will meet those needs. This one here is for different height transitions where you need a very wide transition ramp. This one gets specified in many, many convalescent homes and hospitals where people are wheeled across that, and the previous one might be a little more abrupt, where this one gives you a nice smooth transition, and it's available in either 2-inch or 3-inch wide. It can handle quite a bit of weight, pallet racks, floor jacks, forklifts, that type of thing. So don't worry about it. Its durability, it's certainly suitable for those. And you can see also, I should fail to mention, that this one could actually be done a retrofit. It comes with and without the anchoring leg to fit it under the tile. We would always prefer it go down with the tile in conjunction with the tile installation, and the anchoring leg is fit underneath the tile, the first course of tile. But if you don't, then this one is a retrofit that can be used. So the key takeaways from that section, again, just we're going to protect the edge of the tile. We're going to make a nice smooth transition, whether it's same height or different height, and many of them are available for more of a design element if you want to do a radius. So keep those in mind. All right, so how about movement joints and cove treatment? There are movement joints that are just movement joints. There are other ones that are just cove, and then we have ones that are both cove and movement. So we're going to go through all of those. You can see from the photographs here, if you don't accommodate movement in the tile veneer. Remember, the tile by nature has its own tendency to expand and contract due to heat, moisture, or loading of the floor, and they will do that at an independent rate and a different rate or different degree than the floor below it that it's bonded to. So we have to make allowances for the tile, the nature of the tile, to change dimension too. And you can see what happens if you don't accommodate for some movement here, whether it's around the perimeter or in the field as we see here, or even a vertical inside corner as you see in the lower picture, the lower right picture. So what happens if you don't accommodate movement here? You can see the type of things that can occur here. This is actually an appliance showroom, and you can see that with all the weight of all those appliances, making that floor actually deflect a little bit, and no movement joints, no soft joints within the tile field or around the perimeter. The tile had no option except to go up. And you can see it actually popping free here when it was under such force there, where it just was moving towards itself so much and it couldn't accommodate it, and it would literally pop up off the floor. So this is why we really truly need to have accommodation of the movement. So why are we using movement joints? It is to allow the expansion and contraction of the tile layer itself and its relationship between the tile layer and the substrate that it's bonded to below. So it could actually serve the purpose for both of those things. So where are we going to put them? Well, one of the places is where we anticipate vertical movement. This is not in plane lateral movement, but actually out of plane vertical movement like this. So you will need an expansion joint. Now, if it's a construction joint and they've pinned it or doweled it or the rebar goes throughout, then that's just a cold joint. But if it's actually designed where those two pieces of the slab, the concrete slab in these two cases we're seeing here, move out of plane, that's one of the places we're definitely going to need a movement joint. Other locations, everyone's into large format tile, which is a great design element. But as you get large tile over larger expanses, we've actually lost the amount of net soft joint we had when the tiles used to be maybe 12 inches square or so, and we put a joint every 20 feet or every 25 foot. Now we have these great spans, and a lot of times the floors are engineered to span greater distances without any structural support, which makes them very kind of bouncy. So even in these cases, you should consider moving your expansion joints to a greater frequency, or your movement joints to a greater frequency. Now, this is straight out of the Tile Council of North America Tile Installation Handbook. You can see here it's called EJ, Expansion Joints 171, and it does give you some guidance as far as location and frequency of movement joints. Take notice that in an interior, you have to break up your tile field every, say, 25 feet maximum before you introduce a soft joint, something that will take up a little bit of that movement. But if it's outside where there's a lot of sunlight and a potential for more moisture content, then we're going to bring them into a much greater frequency. And if they're inside but still exposed to moisture or heat, we're at the same maximum as we are exterior. An above ground concrete slab, that means we're talking about a structural slab that's either post-tension concrete or pre-stressed concrete, one of these structural type of slabs where they're designed to move but span greater distances unsupported. There we're going to be at 12 feet too. Again, you could look this all up in the Tile Council of North America under expansion joint EJ 171. So you do have a couple options as far as what you use for movement joints. One of the options, and it's been around for quite some time, is a sealant, where you actually put a sealant in. So, but do, again, check with EJ 171 in your Tile Council. There's a lot of good guidance in there about the type, the grade, the class, depending on whether it's going to be vertical, horizontal, is it residential, is it heavy duty, you know, what are you going to need? But bear in mind that these are just a soft joint and they do nothing to protect the edge of the tile from chipping or cracking, as you can see here in the photographs. They also require that they can't be bonded to 3 surfaces, only 2. So of course you're going to want the sealant to bond to the 2 edges of the tile, which means you need some sort of backer rod or breaker tape to break the bond so it doesn't seal and actually adhere to the surface below it. So keep that in mind. A lot of them need to be ground down, primed before they're put in. Some of them take quite a bit of time to cure. Other ones are quicker, but keep that in mind that there's quite a bit of labor and time element involved in this. And many of them can't be put in until the grout and the thin set is fully cured, which means another amount of time you'd have to wait before including them. So just keep those all in mind as you look at those. Again, and they do require constant maintenance. So keep that in mind. Over in Europe, they actually call them maintenance joints. I found that interesting when I would first travel over there, that was actually the terminology. So they were trying to convey that it was going to take some maintenance throughout its life. So keep that in mind here. And of course, you know, it is a constant maintenance and redo, replace, or lay over again. So that type of thing can occur. So the other option is the profiles that are out there from the manufacturers. They do make it simple because they're installed when the tile is installed. You grout right up against them and they're done. So there's no VOCs from many of the caulks and sealants that are out there. There's no curing times required. Just goes in with the tile. You grout up against it as you see in the picture, and then you're done. So let's take a look at some of those here. This one actually has a replaceable rubber section, the movement joint. So if it does get damaged or wore out, it can literally be replaced without removing the tile or the edge protection profiles that are on either side of it. So here's some of the ones that you can use for surface and expansion joint profiles here. So let's take a look at, again, there's many on the market. They're very specific for the application, but here we're just going to highlight a few of them here. This one's very popular because it is very narrow, like the grout joints are these days. Comes in a lot of different colors to match your tile or your grout. It does accommodate the movement, and this would be something you can use in a residential to medium duty commercial type of application. So keep that one in mind, very popular. This one again has the removable and replaceable movement joint, but it does give you good support of the edge of the tile, protects it from ever chipping or cracking because it does have that edge protection. And the insert is available in your most popular grout colors. Keep that in mind. This one's even a little wider and has a replaceable rubber movement joint, and you can see the colors from the inset, what it's available in and how it goes in. So this would be for more of a heavy duty and commercial application. This one's all metal. This is all stainless steel. You can see how wide it is, just about a ½ inch wide, and it works in a tongue and groove, so it does allow for in-plane movement quite a bit, and there's nothing there to replace, as you can see in the stylized drawing, and it is fairly attractive in these commercial settings. If you do need out-of-plane movement, besides just horizontal but vertical movement too, those are available. There's several of those on the market. This particular one does work here on a ball and socket at both sides and a tongue and groove, so it moves in both directions. So this will accommodate all the three-dimensional movement too, so keep that one in mind. How about Cove? Back in the day, there was a lot of tile that was available with a Cove base. Now, why would you need a Cove base? Well, moppable, keep it clean, easy. In a lot of food service area, it's a requirement, and it can be an aesthetic thing, so keep that in mind. But again, there aren't a lot of tiles that are available with Cove any longer, not like it used to be. And you can see the type of different pieces you needed to execute a job, to turn an inside or outside corner and cap it off correctly, whether it was a moppable Cove or a top set Cove. And you can see from the other picture that even if you do have one, a lot of time it doesn't really match your tile. You're kind of a compromise saying, well, we need a Cove, so we'll use these. The nice thing about the profile Coves are you don't have to limit yourself to the tile. If the tile is suitable for the environment, you can match a Cove to it, and then you could use that tile itself. So let's look at some of the perimeter joints and the Cove treatments that are out there. Again, highlighting some of the most popular ones that we offer and that are utilized quite often here. This one here has an anchoring leg on one side, which allows you to use it adjacent to, say, wood. Now we know that wood needs to expand and contract from seasonal changes of moisture content, and tile does too, so this makes a nice transition between those two. You can use this around the perimeter, abutted up to the edge of a restraining surface like a toe kick, a face of a bathtub, or a shower pan, or a screen door or sliding door, some sort of threshold. I use this quite often when I was a tile contractor out in Northern California, where I would put this over the top of whatever the material was on the countertop. When I wasn't tiling the counter, just the backsplash. So I'd set this down on the countertop with a small bead of sealant to hold it in place to the countertop. I'd set it into the thin set on the backsplash and then stack my first course of tile off of it. And I was ensured I'd never have to come back to regrout or caulk and try to match the color of the grout to caulk when that joint between the first course of tile and the deck, whether it was a stone or a solid surface or whatever it happened to be. So keep that in mind. It's available in many, many colors to complement the grout that you're having, and it virtually eliminates maintenance down the road. So keep that one in mind. This one also can be used as a perimeter joint. This is a little more heavy duty, one that you could use here, and you can actually bond this to the fixed elements, to the restraining surfaces around the perimeter. Here's one that looks similar when it's installed to the first one I showed you, but there's a couple of differences. It has an anchoring leg on both sides, so it would be where you're actually going to have tile on both surfaces there, and it has a tile pocket. If you look at the stylized drawing down in the corner, it has a pocket where you can hide the cut edge of the tile, or if the wall isn't perfectly straight, your first course of tile can be straight because that tile can actually move in and out of that pocket a little bit. Even though the wall is not straight, the first course of tile will be. So it's an aesthetic thing and a function thing. And the only thing you see once the tile's all installed and grouted up, it just looks like there's the grout line there at the bottom. So keep that one in mind. It's also used in verticals where you want to eliminate any ongoing maintenance where you have a change in plane with your tile work. If you do read EJ 171, it will tell you that another place where a movement joint is required is where there's a change in plane. And in other words, like here, we're showing you a couple of inside corners on some walls. Perfect example to put that profile in there, and then you never have to come back to regrout or caulk those corners. How about some of the coves? Now, I said some of the coves can be used for movement too, and some of them are just cove. Others are cove and movement, so keep that in mind. If you look at this one's very popular out there. And the reason for its popularity is it is a very small cove, doesn't take up a lot of space, but allows you to have two different tiles of different thicknesses join here, because you can see the anchoring leg is only under one tile. So you order it to go under the one tile thickness, and then you just move the profile in and out so the face of the cove is flush with the other tile regardless of what thickness it is. So keep that one in mind. It's very nice. Here's one kind of similar. Again, one anchoring leg, but there's no accommodation for a tile thickness on the adjacent side. This one will accommodate to any kind of flat surface, whether you have an epoxy floor or resin or whatever your flooring is. You can simply have a cove that's going to sit directly on that material, and then you have your cove up to your first course of tile, and you can see how that would work. So really popular. Now, these last couple of profiles that I showed you, and many on the market, are available in many different types of finishes and colors, and you can see here from the screen that this one comes in quite a few colors to match the tile. The reason I bring this up is many times the cove was just considered for more of a commercial application because it was a metallic finish. Now that we have all of these colored finishes, it does virtually blend in and complement the tile, and we're seeing it utilized more and more in a residential setting because of that reason. And they do come with all the inside, outside corners, end caps, connectors, everything you need to do a real professional and clean looking installation. So you might be using movement joints to just accommodate movement here, but you could be using them to do a transition to an adjacent plane like a floor or wall. You could be using them for a cove, and ones that do both cove and movement too. So keep in mind, There's many of them on the market out there. We really don't have time in this limited time frame to show you everything that's out there, but they're very specific for applications, and you'll find a lot of success with finding one that meets your specific needs. Okay, how about profiles for walls? Let's take a look and see what we have. Back in the day, again, I know it's a historical perspective, but you know, we're in the tile industry and tile's been around for quite some time. We had all sorts of tile for walls that came with any imaginable type of trim piece you could use. And you could see some of the pieces that were available, some of them that you really truly needed to do a very professional, clean, finished off type of job. Well, with so many tiles coming with no trim, unfortunately, what we see out there in the industry are these very unattractive images that you see in the photograph. And me being in the tile industry for many decades, this does kind of break my heart to see this. I know a lot of people think, man, that just does not look good. We don't want people to think about tile in this fashion. When they think about tile, they certainly shouldn't have this type of image come to mind. So it can be aesthetically pleasing and protect the edge of the tile and really be a lot more cost effective than tile that even comes with trim. So keep that in mind. If tile came with trim, you'll actually find that this is an economical alternative to that beside. So we're going to look at some different ones that are out there on the market. There's several of them out there as far as their configuration and what they do and how much they show. So let's kind of scroll through some of those. I have many of them up here on the screen currently. And again, this is highlighting a lot of the most popular ones that are on the market. One of them is just a very simple L angle, and you might recognize this profile from the floor section that we went through just a few minutes ago. And you're right, it's actually the exact same profile, comes out of the same extrusion die as the others, but for walls, we'll offer it in some finishes like a color-coded aluminum or maybe a material like a plastic that we wouldn't necessarily want to see on a floor except for in really light commercial, residential applications, never in commercial. So in this case, the ones that you'll see here would be available in some plastics, some color-coded aluminums, which by the way is powder coating, which is pretty darn durable, along with the anodized metals and many others. So it's just very simple. It's just going to cover up the edge of the tile that probably doesn't have any glaze on it to give you a clean aesthetic right there. Another one that's very popular is one that kind of mimics a quarter round, because we had quarter round in the tile industry for a very long time to do those transition when everything was a mortar bed application. So the quarter round is very popular. And one of the other reasons why it's popular is because it comes with inside corners, outside corners, pieces, all types of pieces you need to do three-way. So keep that in mind, that's very popular there. Another one that's gaining popularity is more of a squared off look here. Instead of round, it continues with the square look of the tile itself. And you can see how nice this looks where it blends in with the tile. This one does have a button that's used for both inside and outside. It's the identical button to do those transitions. So keep that square shape in mind too. Now this one does come with a retrofit where it doesn't have an anchoring leg. You can see from the inset picture, we don't know what hit this, but this was a commercial application and it took a pretty hard blow and actually dented the profile. So this wasn't such a hard fix because we didn't have to take all the tile off to remove it. We just had to cut out a small section and replace it with the retrofit one, and that really did save quite a bit of labor and expense. So keep that in mind. This here, you can see this spa and retreat-like area where they've used this edge protection here to cap off all the benches and even the hood for the fireplace and so forth. This makes for a very attractive application. Now, great job there. Here's one that's even smaller, very unobtrusive. It's not going to take up much space at all. You can hardly see the profile. You really want to feature the tile. You don't want a lot of profile to show. You can see how small this one is in the stylized drawings. Kind of comes out at an angle there where you actually miter the tile. Mitering tile has been around as an alternative, but it still leaves the tile quite vulnerable and doesn't really look good because the edges of the tile will, in many cases, chip when you run it through the miter, through the wet saw. So keep that in mind. This is going to clean that up and give you some edge protection, but be very unobtrusive. So these profiles, as I said, come in lots of colors and finishes. You can get colors that are on PVC plastic. You can get them on aluminums that are powder coated, so a color coated aluminum. Very popular are the matte finishes in black and white. And then, of course, the very popular where they're not a solid color and not a gloss. They're more of a non-gloss, and they're not a solid color, and they're not a smooth texture either. They're kind of variegated and have a mottled effect to them and have a little texture, very much like so many of the tile that are out there on the market. So it's going to complement the tile and look quite nicely. This is an interesting little profile that's available now. It actually insets like that and finishes off both sides of the adjacent covering to give you kind of a unique style there. So they keep that in mind, that that's nice, and it does come with a little corner that's going to suit that need to finish that off and make it very attractive. So that's kind of a neat piece that's fairly recent. This one actually turns the corner at a 45. So if you wanted to add a little bit of that style to it, you can see that it does a 45. How about if your wall isn't a 90-degree angle at an outside corner? Maybe it is a 45, or in this case, we're going to measure from the other side and call it a 135-degree angle. But you can see how this will actually accommodate those type of corners. So keep that in mind. How about some decorative profiles here that are just going to add some design element or some functionality? So let's take a little tour of a few of the most popular ones there. You can see here where this is a channel that allows you to inset an accent tile or a tile of a different color or maybe even a different thickness from the tile that's going on most of the wall. The field wall comes with an inside corner and an end cap outside corner. So that's kind of a nice little design element that you could add there. How about a shadow gap? This was really brought out primarily as a shadow gap to break up a big wall, so it isn't just a monolithic look, that you had a little bit of an accent in there. Quite popular for that as a design element, but then it also works as where you could put in a permanent a splash guard or a piece of glass in a shower or a wet area there. So this comes in different widths to accommodate the different widths of glass. And bear in mind that if you have waterproofing in here, because it is a wet area, it's nice because the glass people don't drill any holes through all your waterproofing when they come to install the glass. They just simply set it in the track with some sealant and some of the small bumpers that keeps it from chipping, the glass from chipping as it goes in, and it makes for a very, very clean application between the tile and your splash guard. Maybe you just want to add a small metallic accent into a wall where you're maybe changing tile, or just again want to break up a tile wall or even a floor. We find these are used in the floor, so keep that in mind. You can see it's just about an inch wide, so not very wide, and you know how expensive metallic tile is. This would be a more economical way to add some of this metallic accent into there. How about wall base? You know, it's when you put a tile job down, there are many types of base that can be used, but some of them aren't as aesthetically pleasing as we would like, or maybe don't have the function. Many times you're putting a tile in a wet area, and you certainly don't want to put, say, for instance, a wood base down in there. So keep in mind that there are actually alternatives to that in profiles. This particular one is a brushed stainless steel, and it comes with all the end connectors and caps and corners that you would need. And actually, it has a little bit of a sealing lip that's an option that you can put across the bottom of it before you set it, top set it on the tile or whatever material you're going to have on the floor, and that'll seal it up to keep the liquids from getting underneath that baseboard. So you can see here, it looks quite attractive when you put it in place with all of the different profiles and the other end caps and connectors that we have available. It comes in a couple of different heights, so it'll meet your needs. It's nice to cover up, maybe if you popped off a base of some sort, that it covers it up without having to do a whole lot of cleanup before you install it, and it does exceed your commercial code requirements, so keep that in mind. So a couple of nice heights as far as that's concerned. How about heavy duty outside or inside corners where you're doing these type of applications. Outside corners, you could do a great job with the tile, and then something runs into it and damages the corner. It's going to be a costly repair or an aesthetic that's going to be there. So keep these type of profiles in mind. Here we'll show you this one. You can see that this one does have anchoring legs, so it is installed with the tile when the tile is being installed, and it's going to give you good heavy duty edge protection on that outside vertical corner. It does also come with a retrofit where it will actually go over the top. You can put this on with sealant, but it does come with a self-sticking tape. You just simply peel and stick and put it in place. You can see how nice this would go here, and it comes in a 90-degree and a 45-degree angle. How about the inside corners? Whether you want one that's a little more square or a little bit more like a cove, keep these in mind. These do fit over the top, so they're put in after the tile is put in place. So keep those in mind that those are out there and available too. So whether you're doing it for aesthetics, whether you're doing it to increase the potential of tile that you could choose from, because there's such a limited amount of tile that comes with the trim. If you're doing that, you eliminate the mitering. Certainly, it could be used as a design element, or it can blend into the tile, and it's available in lots of different colors and finishes to do that. Let's look at some of the other applications as we move along here. We'll look at some stair profiles, some for countertops that we could still do, and then some of the curbless showers that are out there, and how we hold the water back in those cases. All right, so challenges of stair treads, even if the tile does, or the tile you're choosing does come with a bull nose or some sort of stair tread, they're still very vulnerable to taking impact and so forth, and may not have the slip resistance you need. So keep in mind that there are ones on the market that are profiles that are going to serve the purpose. Again, we're just showing a few right here that that can be used either in place when the tile is installed or retrofit. It depends on how much of a tread you need. Do you just need a nosing? Do you need the slip resistance? Well, of course you do. So keep those in mind. And so these are some of the most popular ones. This one has really increased in popularity. It is all stainless steel. It does have nubs on it that give you a grip to meet your coefficient of slip resistance. It has an anchoring leg, it fits in, and it just covers over the riser just a tiny bit to make for a real clean transition. This does get backfilled entirely with your thin set, your bond coat, as you're installing it, and it'll give you years and years of maintenance free. This one has a removable and replaceable movement or wear area, the slip resistant area that comes in various colors, including optic yellow. If you read the ADA, the bottom and top step in a series of steps need to be a contrasting color, and like 40% contrasting on the Pantone color wheel from the colors of the tile. So keep that in mind, but this is a nice profile for that. It's not too terribly wide across the top. You can see it says 1 and 1/32, so fairly narrow. Some that cover up the subassembly, you might just have a single step down into an adjacent room. You cover those up. Maybe you want to cover up the riser that's coming up if it's a series of steps or just one. Keep that in mind. It could be a subfloor. It could be, your underlayment and subfloors is showing, and you want to cover all that up and increase the aesthetics. Keep that in mind. Here's one that looks like an OG, a very popular style. We see this in crown molding and guttering on buildings and so forth. So an OG that, again, doesn't take up a lot of space, doesn't really call itself out as much as the others because it is fairly small. We do have the ones, again, that are going to cover up a lot of the vertical, whether it's a series of steps like we see here or one step. This one in particular is exposed to light foot traffic, so residential, light commercial, because this is an anodized aluminum. Like so many of our other profiles, that's where you would use these. If you want to do a countertop with some of the large format tile that are available on the market, look at what you can do here and actually meet a nice price point, be very economical, and give a nice, sleek, modern look here. It is the bull nose, it is the facing material, it covers up whatever the deck was made out of. and gives you a nice clean look. So keep these in mind. Inside corners, outside corners, connectors, those type of pieces too. How about multi-functioning profiles, where it could be used here as a stair tread where you don't want to see much at all. You can see these come with anchoring legs. They're both have the ability to follow a radius. If your stairs actually have a radius, there's very little on the market that can accommodate that. Keep in mind that both of these can do that for you. Tile over tile. A lot of time, in order to minimize the bidding on the process, don't do demolition and tear out the existing tile if there's nothing wrong with it. You could put tile over tile, and so you need these profiles to actually cover up the existing tile and the new tile surface. Besides, you can see how this will do that in a very quick and easy and attractive way. How about curbless showers that are becoming very popular? Whether it's curbless and you just remove the curb, or whether you're truly building a barrier-free shower, which is a lot more than just taking out the curb, right? There's other aspects to building a barrier-free shower as far as dimension and access, and many things come into play there. But a lot of time, you now have no curb, you have no door. How do you keep the water in the wet area, not coming out onto the floor? There's these type of profiles that are available on the market too. So you can see here, both that can be installed when the tile's being installed or being put over the top of the existing one. This one has a nice little semicircular lip, so it doesn't show up a whole lot. This does meet the ADA compliant for slope ratio and so forth, and will hold back actually a considerable amount of water. You can use it retrofitting if you need to put it in after the fact. You can see that it has its own profile that it fits in, and then the thing is sealed down onto the tile. This one has a collapsible upright. Unfortunately, because of the way the ADA writes the compliance terminology, because it does stand up taller than what we can have in one abrupt upright, this does not meet ADA, although it does collapse and then spring back up. So just keep that in mind. It is a collapsible and replaceable upright to actually serve the purpose to hold the water back. So keep that in mind. And then how about some profiles for resilient coverings? Very popular out there, luxury vinyl, planks, tiles, those type of things. We have a small series, and they are on the market, of profiles that will actually do this. So they'll do the edge protection, do the transition, different coverings of thickness, and then you can design this in to complement your resilient covering. So you can see here, floor and wall cap, where you could use that in a vertical or a horizontal here next to carpet, where you have two even heights and they're both hard surfaces. You see more of a T size. You have a floor one that gives you the ramp down to the adjacent covering. You can have a wall and stair corner, again, vertical or horizontal, and then the stair nose besides. And here's some photos of they're actually put in, so you can see how small they are, unobtrusive. Many of the trim that come from the flooring industry to accommodate this is big and wide and not that attractive and actually prone to damage, where these profiles will fit nicely, do their job, and not call attention to themselves. So keep those in mind as we just scroll through a couple pictures here and show these installed, and then some stylized drawings of how they actually go in place. Many of them kind of mimic the ones we saw earlier in the tile to adjacent coverings, whether it's carpet or vinyl or hardwood, still along the same line, but these are actually made and designed for the thicknesses of the luxury vinyls that are on the market. Here's the round one that gives you that quarter round type of look, protects the edge of the luxury vinyl also, so keep that in mind. And you can do a whole series of steps with these too. So those are available. That's really going to make your life a little easier, whether you're selling, installing, or specifying these type of products. So keep that in mind. Well, as far as those folks that have a commercial affiliation here that are on this call today, we do have the Spec Wizard and the BIM. Keep that in mind. We do have an 800 number at our company that you could go to for support. And if you're an installer or salesperson, of course, you can certainly reach us there too. So let's keep that in mind. How much time do we have left, Jim? We have about 10 minutes before we have to finish the call. So how are we doing on that end?
We're doing great. We're doing fantastic. I just wanted to comment that I'm amazed at the ingenuity of your research and development and design team. Every time we have these webinars and we present these programs, there are so many new things that you've come up with to help tile and stone installers and any floor or wall installer. It's quite impressive. I'm impressed. So that's fantastic. I have to tell you,
because, Jim, we're run by a bunch of tile setters, right? So we have that mindset when we see that
great.
something needs to be a solution needs to be proven. Yeah, it's a great company to work for that matter.
Yeah, and you have a great technical service. You have a great, your social network is fantastic. You're really out there and really trying to help installers. It's fantastic. So I just wanted to say that your program is so good. We really don't have any questions, but I do have one real quick one, and that is, it isn't really technical, but one of our attendees is asking, when will the 2021 Schluter Illustrated Price List be published? And or should they stick with the 2020 version and use that pricing?
Okay, great question. We are planning, actually printing. We are planning on printing an illustrated price list for our company, Schluter Systems. We are. It's still a few months out. Look for it in June or July. But you can always find the most up-to-date illustrated price list on our website. You go to schluter.com and go to downloads. You can find the entire catalog there. That's going to be the most up-to-date one. Even we keep that up-to-date all the time, even though we haven't really gone to print yet. The reason we're holding off, and we didn't have one in January or March this year, is because, surprise, surprise, as you just said, Jim, there's so many new products on the market. We really had to say, okay, when are we going to stop adding products and put this thing into print? And then we kept putting it off and going, well, we really want this product in that, or we want this whole new series of products in there. So let's hold off on the catalog. So it's coming, but we'll have that here around mid-year, certainly early in the third quarter of next year. We'll have that, and then we will be back to our regular January issue in 2022.
Great. So I knew if I kept you talking, we'd get some questions. So here we go. So our first question here is, you have a LED profile. When will they be in the US?
The LED profiles, yes. It's called LiproTech, which stands for Lighted Profile Technology, LiproTech. Readily available throughout Europe. It's in a transition period right now to be in the US. The electrical is completely different, if you're unaware of that, folks, from Europe, as far as the voltage, the requirements, the step-down transformers. There's so much stuff. It would have been really nice to be able to just bring the entire product line over, put it in the catalog and say, we got it, let's start selling it. But unfortunately, it's going to be taking quite a bit of time to get through UL and everything that we need to get through with all the electrical codes. So I don't really know what the ETA is on that. It's going to trickle in. I know we've got a couple of things we're going to bring in first and then build on that. But I really can't tell you a date. And if I knew it, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. So
I know what you're doing. You're keeping them waiting, right? Keep that interest up. Let's see when it's coming. Keep checking with us, right? That's good. That's good.
I like, yeah.
Are the APP prices kept up to date? The Schluter APP? I don't even know what that is, so I'm reading a question.
APP. I'm not, is that like the, I'm going to have to guess too.
Stefan, can you give us a little update into your question, what you're asking, please?
I think that might be as far as its material compliance and that type of green and lead. Is that, I'm guessing maybe it has to do with that, but we'll see if he can.
Here he goes. Here's what it is. They have an app. Okay, your app.
Oh, an app.
Yeah, now it makes sense. Sorry, Stefan.
Jim, are we old or are we old?
Yeah,
I mean,
we are old. App.
For crying out loud.
Short for Apple. I thought it was short for Apple. I didn't know.
We do have an app. Version 1 is out. We're going to be putting out version 2 here shortly, which is going to have a lot more functionalities, a lot more gadgets to it. So there is a Schluter app available now. Just go to the App Store and download it. It's free. And we do have things like in-floor heat calculator and configurators and ways that you can actually build product list, material list, and actually send them right off to your distributor or retailer to do ordering. So there's certainly a search for all the material is on there. Its search is a little different than our online catalog. I always prefer to just go to our online catalog, but you can search through the app for any of our product line too.
Well, fantastic presentation, and I just want you to know that during your presentation, there were numerous comments of people saying they use your products all the time. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. A lot of them are out there and will be watching. I want to thank you. I want to thank all of our attendees for spending the last hour with us. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to another great presentation by you, Andy and Schluter. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I think we're on for one this fall, right, Jim? We
Yep,
have another one?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Let me look it up here. I'll even let you know what day that is.
Okay.
So we got one coming up October 28th from Schluter.
Oh.
So look for that. So
Maybe I should put that in my calendar too, Jim. What do you think?
Why don't you do that right now?
I'll do that right now. But I would also like to thank all of you for attending and for all your kind comments about using our product. I certainly appreciate that you do that. So we appreciate your business, and whatever we can do to support you, let us know.
That's great. Thanks, everyone. Just keep a lookout for our next invite. I think we have our next webinar is May 11th, and we try to do them every couple of weeks. So keep in touch. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.